when you prepare for the challenges, when you prepare for the adversity, the things that are coming at you that cause stress, and when you are prepared for those things, you now have the choice of how you respond to them. So instead of reacting, instead of shouting at the children or multitasking so that you can get through all the things that you need to get done, and then you find that you make mistakes or you're taking all the time to repair that relationship. We waste so much time when we are not resilient, fixing those things that we've done in reactive mode.
Welcome to the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Perda. As a marriage coach who's married with 3 kids, I know how much parenthood could change a marriage. If flirting, laughing, and having fun together feels like a thing of the past, then I'm here to teach you that marriage doesn't have to feel so hard with your parents, and your marriage can thrive even when you're in the season of raising kids. Whether you're in a good place in your marriage and you just want to continue growing together, or you're wondering if you even like your spouse anymore, this podcast has something for you. Join me here each week as we dive into what it takes to help your marriage grow, and maybe even do a 180. You'll learn ways to handle conflict better, bring that spark back into your relationship, as well as learn how to improve other areas of your life from my lovely guest experts. Are you ready for the next stage of your life and marriage? Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. This week, we have a special guest, Charlotte Haggie, and she's going to show you a different perspective on how we can better handle stress and what you actually need instead of just lightening your load. We're going to talk about what you need to do to help you navigate through motherhood, navigate through life, marriage, without feeling like you're constantly in this state of stress, that this life is just one big struggle, and that you have to feel like you're struggling the entire time until the kids grow up and become adults. Okay? So, Charlotte, I'm so happy to have you here because when I first met you and I heard what you did, I was like, yes, this is exactly what people need to hear. More moms need to have you in their life and to learn more about what you're going to share with us so that they can start living the life that was meant for them, right? We're not meant to just feel like we're in a constant state of struggle. We are meant to thrive. And without the proper tools, it can be difficult to do that, especially if our moms didn't have this knowledge of what you're going to share with us on this episode. So before we get into it, Charlotte, can you please share with us where you live, what you do, and how old your kids are?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here today. I love helping stressed out moms know that there is hope for them. So it is just a joy to be here. I am in Cape Town in South Africa, so quite far away, but I love that we can come together over this incredible technology from all over the world and spend this time together. So it's just a joy to be able to do that. I am a resilience coach for working mums, helping mums build what I call the mental muscles of resilience. I have 2 little ones of my own, a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old. And yeah, life is busy and good.
Yes, I can totally relate because I myself have 2 young kids around that age, as well as a stepson who is 15, which is super wild. I don't feel like I have been parenting that long, but I have been parenting that long. I was just out with my girlfriends last night to celebrate a friend's birthday. Some of us have really young kids. Some of us have elementary to high school. And every single person was like, I still feel like I'm in my 20s, but I have kids and my body's a little more tired, but mentally we still feel like we're so young. So it's just like was so crazy to feel like, oh, okay, I guess I'm going to feel like this for the rest of my experience of raising kids. And it is busy no matter what stage of parenthood you're in because it changes, right? Whether you're navigating diapers and sleep schedules, or you're doing sports and homework, or helping people make life choices, it just is never ending. They will always need us.
I love to tell anyone who's having a baby that if anybody ever asks for advice, I just say to them, everything is a phase. Every
Mm-hmm.
part is a phase, and you will move through that phase, and there'll be another phase. And so if you're in it, know that it's not forever.
Yes, thank goodness. Thank goodness for that. There will be a time where the hard stuff that you're going through right now is going to be the thing that you wish you were dealing with instead of what you
Yes.
have to come. But, that is a great segue into the topic that we're touching on. Okay. So you said you're a resilience coach. Resilience is a muscle that we build. And resilience is what we need to navigate life in general, but especially parenthood, to not feel like we are just like on a hamster wheel going nowhere, but we're working super hard and nothing is paying off, right? I recently came across a post that you made. You had mentioned that stress is a choice and that there's a difference between challenges and stress. Can you share with the listeners what that means so that they can take in this new way of looking at their life and interpreting their experiences? Because I feel like that's a really good thing to distinguish between challenges and stress because they are
Mm,
not the same.
absolutely. We live in this incredibly busy world, especially now. You're talking about when we were 20 and we lived more free, less responsible
Mm-hmm.
lives. And we still feel like we're 20, but we now have these huge responsibilities. And we have to work, or we want to work, but of both perhaps. And we have so many hats to wear. We now have so many more roles to fill, and so many desires as well. We want to have great relationships with our children and our spouses, but we also are still wanting to achieve at work, and we want to feel good, and we want to be getting all these good results. And we suddenly are feeling this experience. I think we can all recognize it as stress. And what I would say is that the things that are happening outside of us are challenges. They are things that are happening to us. And stress is the response that we have to those challenges. So it is something that is happening inside us in response to the challenges, or the things perhaps that we see as challenges that are going on outside of us.
I couldn't agree more because challenges, they are subjective. Someone could be encountering the same thing and not view it as a challenge. And you do. So we all have different levels of bandwidth and capacity and ability to handle things. And just like with conflict, I say that conflict is inevitable in a marriage, but arguing is optional. So there's a commonality between those two. We choose to argue. And just like this, you're choosing to view it as something hard and something of a nuisance. And so then you have a stress response. And what you're saying is the key to that is resilience. So tell me how you define resilience and why you think that moms need more of that rather than just letting go of all the things that they need to do. Because let's be honest, we can't really do that. We can't be like, okay, kids, you're on your own today. I mean, if they're old enough, yes. But young kids, you can't just be like, okay, go make yourself food and go take yourself to school and all that. Like, we cannot do that.
No, absolutely. First of all, let's go to how I define resilience. So I use the Heart Math definition of resilience, and Heart Math is an organization that works a lot around resilience, which is the ability to prepare for, recover from, and adapt to stress, challenge, and adversity. And I think when we think of resilience, we think of this adapting to adversity, or something happens to you and you can bounce back. But for me, the most important element of that whole definition is this idea of preparing for these things. Preparation is key. It's too late when the challenges are flying at you. It's too late. And I spoke about the mental muscles of resilience. I like to think of myself as this personal trainer for your mind. I'm helping you to prepare your muscles to take on the load of challenge that's coming at you. And you can't expect to go into a gym or go anywhere and pick up something that weighs 20 kgs and expect to be able to do it without having the muscles to be able to do it. So when you prepare for the challenges, when you prepare for the adversity, the things that are coming at you that cause stress, and you are prepared for those things, you now have the choice of how you respond to them. So instead of reacting, instead of shouting at the children or multitasking so that you can get through all the things that you need to get done, and then you find that you make mistakes or you're taking all the time to repair that relationship. We waste so much time when we are not resilient, fixing those things that we've done in reactive mode. So I've shouted at the children or I've made a mistake, and we are reacting out of our automatic unconscious brain, which is a very clever part of our brain. It's there to keep us safe because it believes that we're under threat. But when we are building our mental muscles of resilience, we are becoming more aware of what we see as a threat, or even how we feel when we feel threatened. And then we have more of that choice. It's all about choice, because before you can choose how you respond, you have to first become aware of, why do I feel threatened by this thing? Why do I feel like my brain needs to take me into fight or flight? I'm either going to fight this to-do list head on, or I'm going to fight the children, or I'm going to run away from a task that feels uncomfortable by scrolling through social media. In my 6-month group coaching program, which is called Resilient, I take clients through what I call my vibe framework. And I love the word vibe because it's the us that we want to communicate to others, the us that we want other people to feel. And we all give off a certain vibe, and often we're giving off a completely different vibe, and we're longing for it to be different. And so the I of that framework is really investigating, why do I feel this way? What is, as you say, my perspective of the world that means that this situation makes me feel stressed when my colleague or my friend or another mum in the school parking lot seems to feel so calm about it? And, why am I behaving the way that I do? Why do I feel this way? Why do I think these thoughts? And then you can become aware of these things. Then you can start to make a change. I think that so often we start to make changes in our behavior and our results before we really get to know what I call our inner landscape. When I first started this journey, I had no idea about my inner landscape. I didn't know what it was. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? Why? But we are fascinating. And when we get to know ourselves, when we really dig deep into ourselves and are curious about ourselves, then we suddenly have the capacity to change this. We have the ability to master ourselves. And I teach self-mastery. We're mastering how we respond to the world so that we can behave the way that we want to behave, so that we can choose to behave that way, so that we can get the results that we want.
Yeah, I mean, that is exactly how we can become better communicators as well. The more we know about ourselves, the better the conversation we can have. Because when we don't know ourselves, we tend to blame external circumstances or people on what's happening to us. And I want to shift back to what you said, like challenges are happening to us. I think that we need to distinguish that that's our perception, right? Things aren't happening to us, things are happening, period. The way we view it will determine how we respond to it. Are we viewing it as something that's happening to us, like, woe is me, I am the victim? This is why I'm going to behave in this way that isn't in alignment with who I want to be? Or am I being reactive? Or is this happening for me? Can we shift to looking at it as, okay, clearly I'm having a hard time with what's happening. How is this meant to teach me to grow? In what way can I metaphorically use this as an opportunity to turn lemons into lemonade? And I think resilience is a really important and wonderful tool to allow us to start to shift our mindset around things that happen that are difficult for us, right? Life is challenging, period. That is how we grow. They call it growing pains for a reason. It is that discomfort that allows us to break out of our shell and look for a new one. It's like hermit crabs, right? They grow and grow, and it's like, oh, I am too big for this one. Let's set it to the side, go find a bigger one. And so life is very much like that. And motherhood just seems like a pressure cooker. There is a lot of things going on that's constantly changing. And so I feel like once we become parents, resilience becomes even more vital to our livelihood, to our well being. So, why did you start to work with women on this? What about your experiences led you to be like, yeah, people need to be more resilient, and this is why it's so important?
I love talking about it because it has been a revolutionary experience in my life. But I just want to first go back to what you're saying about things happening to and for us. And even that is the beginning of resilience, is saying, this is a
Mm-hmm.
circumstance, this challenge, or this thing that
Yeah.
I perceive as a challenge, is something that is a circumstance. It is factual. You can say this is happening, and everyone will agree, and the way that we see it or the way we perceive it is then how we respond to it. And I think that's the thing, is it's your choice also whether you see it as a challenge or you see it as a gift. And
Right.
actually, a little bit of stress is really important. We need stress to get us up in the morning. If we didn't have anything to get up and drive us, we would not get up. And so we need a bit of stress to get us moving. And when we think about stress, we think of distress. And there's also a type of stress called eustress, which is a good stress. It's the stress that when we're in that state of eustress, we might also call it our state of flow, where the challenge is slightly above our skill set. And so we are driven to achieve it. And we feel like we can achieve it. And so it's not overwhelming. We believe that we can cope. And in that state of flow, in that state of eustress, we're performing at our best. And it's when the challenge or our perception of the challenge goes on for too long, or it gets bigger and bigger and we don't have the muscles to hold it, that then I think it starts to become that distress. And then we move into anxiety, exhaustion, burnout. And that's where I found myself. When I think back to my life pre-children, I was very flustered. I was very chaotic. I mean, this was even pre-children. I was always running around trying to do everything. And I wanted to do everything right. And I wanted to be something. I wanted to be somebody. And I was doing all the things that I thought I should be doing. And then I had children, and then it became even more frenetic. And my career was still very important to me at that time, but I suddenly had this little person who demanded things of me that nobody had demanded before. And actually, things that I really wanted, things like slowing down, things like being more intentional, things like being present. But it was so hard to give him these things. And I was fascinated by my own inability to be the mum and the coach that I wanted to be. And so I spent time looking at, why am I striving? Why am I working so hard? Why am I doing so much? Why am I crashing cars all the time? And what did this little boy need of me that actually I wanted to be? And in that process, I went through my own coaching qualification and then started coaching other mums and noticed how we are stuck in what I call good girl syndrome. We're all trying so hard to be good, to do it right. And especially then as we become mums. And now in this generation where most of us working and told that we can have careers and we can have motherhood and we can have the body that looks like this and we can have time for ourselves and all these things. And so I went through my own process and then created this process for other mums. And the joy of it has been watching women become more free and liberated, but watching how it is this intergenerational thing, how it's not just about the women who come to work with me, but it's about how that impacts their children, how they are learning things that were never taught to their parents, and so as a result were never passed down to them, and how they can actually engage with their children, engage with their spouses. I mean, I have the privilege of being able to work with my spouse in this way. And when you give yourself the gift of resilience, you give that to your children, you give that to the people around you so that they can be strong enough to face this world that these children are growing up into, this world that is hard. And they have a lot to face. I went to a talk at my son's school about raising resilient children, and she was giving this incredible advice to us and amazing steps about what to do. And everyone was buying the book. And someone came up to me and said, it's all well and good, but how do I do the things that she's telling me I need to do for my children? And it just kind of landed in that moment that I was like, this is what I have to do with my life.
I love that. I'm getting this visual as I'm hearing you speak. As you gain resilience and build that muscle, it's almost like you start out as this fragile young sapling of a tree, not much of a trunk. When there's wind blowing, you are very much at the will of the weather. But as you build resilience, your trunk starts to thicken. It grows the rings and you become more stable. And yeah, your leaves and branches might shake in the wind, but the core of you, the foundation, is still strong and anchored. So that's the visual that I'm getting. That's my interpretation of what resilience means to me, is still being able to be you in most circumstances. Obviously, in life, people are going to maybe experience things that really rock them because there are, horrible things that can happen. But in the realm of just daily stressors, daily challenges, whatever you want to call them, there is a way for you to feel like I can handle this. And if something doesn't go the way I expect it to, I don't have to let it rock me so hard. I can just learn to pivot. I can learn to not react so immediately and be less affected, essentially.
Yeah, I had a client once who explained to me that she felt a bit like a metal rod.
Mm,
And when she got hit by something, she kind of vibrated, and
yes.
this vibrated all the way through her. And part of our work together was actually in becoming more like a whip, in that she became more flexible. So she wasn't
Yes.
so impacted by something that hit one end of the rod and it then kind of vibrated all the way down. But if something happened to one end of that whip, she could move through it without being so hugely impacted by it. And the ability to also be flexible
Flexible.
when things are coming at you. In that analogy of the tree, absolutely. And also, in order to have that good, strong trunk, we have to have deep roots. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of us, a lot of our roots are short, shallow, not deep, and certain. And I think for me, certainty is such a gift that resilience gives us, because it allows us to stand firm. It allows us to be sure of ourselves. That allows us to set boundaries. It allows us to ask for help. It allows us to get what we need without feeling guilty about it. And it's only when we have those deep roots, when we really know ourselves and are certain in ourselves, that our trunk can stand firm.
Yeah, and that's what we get to pass down, right? You may not have been raised with this sense of self assurance and have been, given this gift of resilience, and maybe you have to do the hard work and build it yourself. But I will say that it is the most worthwhile work that you can do for yourself. You're going to receive the benefits of it and feel less entangled with everybody else, and just be like, okay, well, that's your business and this is mine. I don't have to be affected by what's going on with you, but I could still be there for you, unattached, but supportive. And like you said, boundaries. You cannot set boundaries if you do not have this strong sense of self and this strong love for yourself. That guilt and that tug is from you being raised as a people pleaser. And now we are the generation that is being faced with this question. Do we want to continue that lineage that's been passed down to us from female down to female? Or do you choose to face it and say, it stops with me? I'm going to do the work so that I no longer feel that obligation to be nice. I choose to be kind to myself and to others, and I choose to prioritize my well-being and not have it be a competition that I have to choose between someone else and myself. And I always say that if you're going to disappoint someone, choose to disappoint other people, not yourself. You have to live with disappointing yourself. That is where regret comes from. And if you ask any old person who knows that their life is not going to last much longer, they will tell you, live a life with no regrets. And that doesn't just mean go do all of the things that are really fun and exciting. That means be true to yourself. You don't want to look back and be like, oh my gosh, I wish I stood up for myself. I wish I used my voice more. I wish I said what I wanted to do and told people how I actually felt and thought. This is what it means to have that resilience, to be able to be you genuinely and let other people in. And when you do that, you are passing it down by example of how it means to live for yourself and as yourself. And I'm seeing that in my daughter. And honestly, sometimes it triggers me. Sometimes I'm like, yes, you go, girl. But when she's doing it in a way that isn't in the healthiest way, because she's only 4, I'm like, oh my gosh, if I did this when I was a kid, I would have got spanked. I would have been yelled at. I would have been, all the things that most kids back then experienced whenever they were a little too much for their parents because they weren't resilient. They didn't grow to be comfortable with emotions and knowing how to handle them because they didn't know how to do it for themselves. And so this work that you're doing with your clients, it is creating a ripple effect that will last generations. And it really does take a lot of courage for people to say, okay, I'm ready for this, right? It's not easy work, but it is so worth it.
It is so worth it. And you talk about that people pleaser or that perfectionist. It's all about identity. And it's all about actually being that little girl that we were before we heard all these stories about what we should be or who we should be or how we should behave. And when our parents said, oh, you're too much for us, or all the stories that we heard, that we then thought, okay, well, in order to survive, in order to fulfill my need for love and belonging, I need to do and be the person that everybody tells me I need to do and be.
Yes.
And that in
they
itself
need us
is,
to be.
Yeah, absolutely, in order to love me. And it's nobody's fault. And this really is important, is that it is nobody's fault. It is generations of this happening. But we have this incredible privilege today to say, who do I want to be? Rather than what do I need to do in order to be the person that they all say I should be, who do I want to be? And that is our work. And it, as you say, it's really hard. But who do I want to be? And how can I take back my agency? Because I think that we have been robbed of our agency
Mhm.
by all these stories, by all of these ideas of what we should be and who we should be and what good results are and all these things. And that investigating section of the program is to investigate who is stealing my agency, who is taking my agency away from me and holding me back from being the person that I want to be. And then doing the things that the person I want to be does so that I can have the life that I want and not disappoint myself, not come to the end of my life and look back with regret on, I wish I had been that person instead of doing all of those things that I thought would make me a valuable, worthwhile person.
Absolutely. I mean, we spent so much of our life learning to be this version of ourselves, like you said, to receive the love that we want. Because everything that we do as a child is in reaction to how other people react to us. Oh, when I do this, this happens. Okay, so I'm going to keep doing this, or I'm not going to do that anymore. And that's why kids who want attention, even if it's through negative behaviors, they're going to continue doing that if that's the only way they feel like they can get attention. And so, a lot of the work that Charlotte does with her clients and myself as well is about how were we programmed to behave and to think and to feel? And how can we make sense of it and then be like, okay, now if we were to start from scratch and honestly ask ourselves, who do we want to be? In your world, it's like, who do I want to be, period? For me, it's like, how is it like to be married to you? What kind of mom do you want to be? What kind of wife do you want to be? And these are not questions that a lot of people ask themselves because it's deeper than they're used to. People are not used to stopping to reflect because they're too busy.
And I
But
also think,
from
I
my
don't know if they
experience,
think that there's even an option of being someone other
someone
than
different. Yep.
the person that they are. That other
Right.
person is so far removed from
Yes.
where they are that it just seems like it's on another planet. I mean, is that even a possibility for me? And
Right.
I want to tell you, it absolutely is. I've seen it, and it's just the most beautiful thing to watch. Sorry for interrupting.
No, you're absolutely right because a lot of us are on autopilot, especially
Mm.
after we become moms. And even before that, actually, if I'm being brutally honest. And it isn't until you come across a podcast like this and listen to this episode and you're like, wait a minute. It's kind of like waking up from the Matrix. You're like, whoa, wait, what's going on right now? You do have a choice. You absolutely have a choice. You get to decide who you want to be. And where you fill in the gaps is okay, do I know what to do to choose a different version of me? If the answer is no, reach out, get help. Charlotte actually has this fantastic guide to help you start on your journey of building your resilience. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so it's 5 simple habits to build your resilience starting today. And the acronym is PAUSE. And that guide just takes you through pausing. Again, it's what you're saying. We're running around doing so much. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, it's 5 simple things that you can do that can help you to slow down and just take that time to be that tree trunk, to stand certain, to stand firm, and not to be pushed over by the wind, not to be pushed over by things that you perceive are the challenges that are too heavy for you to hold, but actually just day by day to build those muscles so that you can hold more and can do so with ease. I think ease and calm and patience, these are things that we want, that we long for, and they are possible.
Yes. And if you've been in my world for a while, you know that I always say that although it seems like you don't have time to do this reflecting, to get to know yourself better, sometimes and every time in these situations, slowing down helps us speed up Because if you just keep going the way that you're going, doing what you're doing, you're only going to make more of the same. Nothing changes if nothing changes. And so what if you just took a little bit of time, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, just to sit and reflect, like, how has life been for me? Do I support the direction that I'm going on? If the answer is no, then let's take a look. Okay, well, where do you want to go? And reverse engineer that process. And again, if you need help, reach out. Reach out to Charlotte, reach out to myself, reach out to someone that you feel like is the best guide for you to help you create that life for yourself, because it is 100% possible. Okay, I have changed my life since entering into the world of coaching and having worked with a life coach myself. I will never be the same person ever again, and nor should any of you. Like, the purpose of life is to grow, okay? And in order for you to have the life that you want, growth is the answer. Growth enables you to be resilient, and that is everything that we want for you, okay? That's what's going to help you be happier, to feel like life is more full, and feel like I can take on anything. And who doesn't want to feel like that, right? You don't want to feel like, oh my gosh, I feel like the world is just caving in on me. If that's you, please connect with Charlotte, okay? Charlotte, where's the best place for someone to learn more about you and be in your world?
I am on Instagram. My handle is at Charlotte Coaches, or my website, www.charlottehaggie.com. Instagram, and I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook. And I just want to say that it is not about having more time or less to do or changing your circumstances. Exactly as Michelle says, that you don't need to do anything outside of yourself except to spend time with yourself. And when you do that, you will have more time. You will be more organized. Your circumstances will change. I also have my own podcast, which is called The Resilient Mum. So you can also listen to me there.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being a guest. Listeners, if you have loved this show, please reach out to Charlotte. Let her know you found her from this episode. And if you know someone that could benefit from listening to this, please do her a solid and share this episode with her. And if you've been a listener of the show and you love this podcast, please leave a rating and review on iTunes and Spotify. I would be so grateful. That is what helps this show grow, and for more moms like you to find this podcast and get them the help that they need. Okay. Well, that's it for this episode. I will catch you back here on the next one. Bye.
That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, please send me a message over on Instagram at Michelle Perta Coaching to let me know what you loved most about it. Hearing from my listeners is my absolute favorite. And if you've been loving this podcast, please leave a rating and review. This will help people like you find the show and get the help they need. Catch you here on the next episode. Bye.